What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Locked On Bucks. Post-game Locked On Bucks. The Bucks handle the Pacers despite being very short-handed. This injury list just does not seem to be getting any smaller, but we got a really good performance from Giannis. Probably his best performance of the season so far. So that's why Frank's here. He wants to break that down. Plenty to talk about with Giannis and just still some of these strange lineups we're seeing. I think some of the role players' contributions we're getting from Grayson and Pat Connaughton continue to be impressive. So there's plenty to talk about. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see me and hear me on this podcast Monday to Friday, and also see my words and read my words over at ESPN and NBA Australia. Joining me is the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. And as we do every day before we get into it, we thank everyone for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day. As I said, free wherever you get your podcasts. Also now on YouTube if you are just listening to us for the first time or joining us for the first time. And today's episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Go to RockAuto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Frank, first time we've caught up this week, been a couple of days, and you know that we have some new listeners because over the weekend, people are starting to panic, Frank, when there was no podcast, no post-game pod after 2 games. The first one was my fault, internet problems. The second one, it's the weekend. Sometimes during the regular season, we try and at least give ourselves night off there from doing the post-game pods, particularly if it's not a big game. If it's a marquee game, we'll come together, we'll figure it out, we'll do something. But the San Antonio Spurs, I don't know. I don't know about that one. But I will say this. I didn't mention this on yesterday's pod, but I meant to.
If Patty Mills was still in San Antonio, you would have obviously felt differently. But, the current Spurs just not quite interesting enough, right?
Well, I did find it a little bit strange. We're going to move on to this Bucks win against the Pacers, 119-109. They're 3-1 on the season. But it did feel a little bit strange to me that the Bucks were severely undermanned in that San Antonio game. They weren't necessarily playing their best, but they still just pushed out this double-digit win. And it was still just such a strange thing that the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks were always just able to keep San Antonio at arm's length on the road. How many times have the Spurs done that to the Bucks with players missing? So, this is the life of covering the Milwaukee Bucks this time in this time. But the Bucks beat the Pacers, as I said, 119-109. No Drew Holiday, no Brook Lopez, no Bobby Portis, no Dante DiVincenzo, no Semi Ojeleye. Am I missing anyone? There was a lot of players out of this lineup. I didn't know what to expect coming in, offensively at least. This was a fun one. This was a fun one, Frank, and it started with Giannis, and you were tweeting some of the numbers out during the game. Found his efficiency, can we say?
Yeah, I mean, I was I was looking back. I was like, man, he shot under 50%. Each of the first 3 games, and I was kind of curious. I was like, has that ever happened? And had never happened in his NBA career. And obviously, I think last year he was under 50% only 10 times all regular season. So it's obviously not a common thing to happen. And the first time that he'd been 3 straight games under 50% since March of 2020, right before the pandemic basically started. So yeah, I mean, a little uncharacteristic from Giannis just in terms of the efficiency not really being there. And I mean, the irony was he's hit a third of his threes. It's not like he's just, 1 of 20 from 3, and that's like totally dragging him down. I think the interesting thing was he was only at 61% finishing at the rim in the first 3 games, which obviously is about 20% under his just ridiculous typical pace from last year. So tonight I thought we saw, some of that meaner version that we would have expected to kick in. We saw him just one of the worst looking air balls you're going to see on a pull-up long 2-point jump shot from him. And he also missed a couple of threes. So I guess you could say vintage Giannis with his jump shot today. But, first they had Miles Turner on him, then they tried Sabonis on him, and he was just getting around those guys with ease and just getting to the rim. And interestingly, I mentioned it in the like tweeted about it early in the game that, we saw the last couple of years, both Nate Bjorkgren and I think Nate McMillan both had tried Malcolm Brogdon as an initial defender on Giannis in previous years. And I remember that in part because think it was 2 years ago. I went to a game over Christmas and saw the Bucks and Pacers, and Brogdon started on Giannis, and Giannis had just kind of a weird game. Like he doesn't really know how to attack Brogdon in some ways because Brogdon's strong, but he's like small, And we saw that in the fourth quarter, and Giannis was 0 for 4 and scored 1 point in the fourth quarter, but he was looking gassed. And fortunately, they didn't really need him ultimately in that fourth quarter. We were able to get some kickouts. He made some nice passes as well, finished with 9 assists. And between him and Chris Middleton, who had 27 on 17 shots, 7 assists, the two guys that you would say those are the two guys that you need to step up and really lead the way without Brooke, without Drew, and without some of those ancillary pieces. We certainly saw that tonight. Second straight, big game from Chris after that for in San Antonio as well, doing Chris Middleton things with those 27 points, and really didn't need Giannis to kind of be at his best in the fourth quarters. He played, I don't know how much he sat in that fourth quarter, if at all. He barely rested, and I think he looked a little bit gassed, but 30 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, couple blocks, 1 steal. I think he had 3 steals. I've checked. It's a long story. I've got some issues with the official score in Indianapolis on some of the steal numbers, but MVP night from Giannis, and was fun seeing some of the complimentary pieces. Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Jordan Nwora, kind of doing some different things, and Thanasis as well. Should call out Thanasis as well, starting next to Giannis, which shows you kind of exactly how dire the injury situation is. But fun night. A nice little what is it? Monday? Is this today? Today's Monday, right? Yeah, nice little Monday early start from Indiana, and the Bucks' dominance over the Central Division just continues. I think it's now December 2018, the last time Giannis lost a game against a Central Division opponent, which is just wild to think about.
Depends where you are in the world, Frank. For me, it's Tuesday afternoon as we're recording this. For you, it's 10:35 p.m. Central Time on Monday night. Yeah, it was funny watching the ease with how Giannis was scoring early in this game, as you sort of mentioned, whether it was Sabonis or whether it was Miles Turner. He was just blowing by those guys. And it's funny that you mentioned Malcolm Brogdon, because the guy that I was thinking about, which is like so funny to think about, is Thad Young. He actually was one of the guys that had some, I don't know what you want to call it, success. He had some success that at least
that was last time they beat the Bucks, that December 28th. I think that was like the Thad Young Giannis stopper night where Giannis had like 14 points or something.
Yeah, he was horrible. I was at that game. And that's probably why it stands out so much to me, because I just remember it was so strange after that was the first season that I was covering the team night to night, and he was just on this path of absolute destruction. So it was so crazy when a guy somewhat slowed him down. Thad Young was that player, and obviously Thad Young, I think he's in San Antonio now, but anyway,
like isn't playing, which is so weird. Thad Young is like not playing in San Antonio. By the way, was that the road trip when like you and Eric almost like died in a patch of fog or snow or ice or whatever that was?
Yeah, it was. We stayed at some hotel that I don't know what was more of a threat, the snowstorm that we had to drive through or the hotel that we stayed at. But anyway, we survived them both. Both recorded an episode of Locked On Bucks. It was great. You could go back in the archives and track that one down if you want. It was absolutely ridiculous. The passing is interesting. I want to ask you a question about Giannis's passing, because I threw it up in our DM and it sparked some conversation. Giannis had the 9 assists tonight. Damn it. Go back and watch the replay. Which player cost him? Which one was the worst miss? Do you know off the top of your head, Frank?
I don't know that there were any really egregious. I don't think there were any after he got to 9 assists. So obviously there were some misses early in the game. But he kind of was piling up the assists in that fourth quarter when he stopped hitting shots himself. So yeah, we'll just shy of the first triple-double of the season, but that's okay.
All right. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Before that, I want to talk about Direct TV Stream. This situation will feel familiar for many of our listeners and viewers. You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. I know I've got about 5 different subscriptions. It's very annoying. You just want to be in one place. And I can tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called Direct TV Stream. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in the one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract, so get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with Direct TV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. So as we continue to roll through here, I sort of teased the DM conversation that we had because I sent out a tweet during the game and basically said, year on year, Giannis's passing continues to improve because, he got to a point in this game and some of its personnel, as we mentioned, the big guys weren't really slowing him down. So then they panicked. More bodies were sent at him. Giannis was just doing whatever he wanted. And the shooters were loving it. Grayson was getting open look after open look. So was Pat Connaughton. But I did feel, and you can completely disagree with this. I'm not sure if everyone will agree with this, but the way I described it is that I just feel like Giannis right now has a comfort level with how to find guys, how to navigate multiple bodies being thrown at him better than ever before. The one pass that we always talk about and we always remember, and this is how I would explain it. Remember that like over the head pass that he threw to Tony Snell in the first year of the Bud era, where he's kind of in midair and then just like tossed it over the back of his head. And that to me was the epitome of Giannis. No, he actually doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, but he knew there was going to be someone standing there. So obviously it took some skill, but it was also just an awareness of where players were meant to stand. I do feel that this year his passes have been more accurate. He's finding guys in the shooting pocket. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but there are some nights where you see him make some of these passes where it's just like, oh my God, this guy has taken a leap in his passing ability as well.
I think probably the biggest change, I think it'd be interesting to look at the data. I mean, I think really since the start of the Bud era in particular, I mean, knowing where he expects to have his 3-point shooters and being able to sort of pass the spots, I think has been something that, he's been very good at now for a few years. I think the dunker spot action and keeping guys in the dunker spot has allowed him to show off a bit more of his interior passing opportunities as well. So, I mean, it really does feel like, every assist is either a layup or a 3-pointer with him, right? I mean, he's not getting like, pass to somebody who's shooting a mid-range jump shot, something like that. So and then we saw that a number of times tonight. I think George Hill had hashtag George Hill dunker spot George Hill.
I thought about you tonight. What about Thanas's dunker spot? I feel like all of Thanas's buckets come from the dunker spot.
Yeah, I think he had like at least like 3 maybe. And I don't know if there were 2 off of Giannis dump offs, but Giannis definitely found him for at least 1 or 2 dunks, which was fun, right? Because normally those guys don't play together very much, just because obviously you're trying to put spacing around Giannis, and Thanasis has typically been, when he's played, he's been as Giannis's backup. So pretty cool to see them get to start together. I always think back. Remember when it was Greek Heritage Night against the Nuggets a couple years ago, and like they started them together, and it was like it was like, did Bud start Thanasis just because it was Greek Heritage Night? It was very strange. And then that was the night when I think like the Nuggets like were missing a bunch of dudes, and they had played the night before, and they just shot the frickin' lights out, and the Bucks just got like killed in the end, and it was just like fighting uphill. But anyway. Funny, I think both starts the Nets had that year were against the Nuggets. They randomly had one in Denver as well when a bunch of guys were hurt. But anyway, neither here nor there. But pretty cool. I mean, again, the story is obviously, I mean, just another dimension of the Giannis story, like the fact that he's playing with his brother. He wins the championship with his brother. Tonight he gets to start with his brother, and they get to play off each other a little bit. Pretty damn cool, right? Regardless of kind of what you think of Thanasis. I think actually Thanasis is like, it's kind of weird. Even going back to the preseason, it's like he's had some like surprisingly smooth finishes and like moves around the basket, which have just been a nice little thing to see. So obviously he has his moments, especially where, I mean, again, like all the quote unquote big guys right now are being stretched because, we've seen center Thanasis, he kind of was the center tonight at times, just given Giannis was having foul trouble. They were trying to keep Giannis away from having to defend Sabonis because of those early fouls. So, yeah, it was definitely an interesting game on a number of fronts. But I thought the thing that was most surprising to me about this game was that, in a lot of ways, it was like the Bucks in terms of, we're used to seeing them use their size, dominate inside, and there are usually a couple dimensions we see them do that with. One, the points in the paint, and other than Sabonis, Pacers had pretty much nothing going on there tonight. I think they ended up at 34 points in the paint. At one point, it was 50-20 Bucks advantage in the paint, which was obviously largely Giannis, and there's also some of his passing and some of the offensive rebounding. So pretty dominating performance there. And again, not necessarily a foregone conclusion given all the guys that you're missing and missing so many big guys. So that was really encouraging. The rebounding has been an obvious area where they have struggled without the size. Tonight, again, they were out rebounded on the offensive glass. I think they were at 75% defensive rebound rate, which is okay, but only 11% offensive rebound rate. So again, they were not able to really, kind of bully anybody inside. But the ironic part of me of playing this Pacers is like, you think, oh man, Bucks are so small. Pacers, they start two really big guys. How are they going to kind of manage that? But Miles Turner just plays so small, like
He's
all he
kind of like
does is
Porzingis.
all he does is like float around the perimeter, and he's not like, he needs to be open to shoot. Like he's not like shooting shots with guys in his face or something. And tonight, I mean, he only played 14 minutes. Basically, he got, Giannis just sort of did whatever he wanted early when Turner was guarding him. And then Gogo Bitadze actually like gave them some energy. Not to say that he like, was giving Giannis a lot of problems, but he was at least getting offensive rebounds. I think he had 7 total offensive rebounds. I mean, that was by far he was the one guy for both teams that basically was getting offensive rebounds and had some nice energy. So he played 18 minutes, but it was just sort of strange because, they really couldn't challenge the Bucks down low other than when Sabonis kind of went to work. And, we saw Sabonis, especially after Giannis sort of had to stop defending him because of the fouls. He drew a foul on Thanasis like in the first 10 seconds. And then there were some tough moments for Mamu defensively trying to stick with Sabonis, who's just a really good player. But I was kind of surprised, to be honest. I mean, Sabonis only ending up with 21 points. They were an efficient 21 points, but I mean, it felt like if Rick Carlisle had really been trying to exploit his matchups, he could have gotten more out of that matchup than they actually got. But either way, Bucks, even with the lack of size and Giannis having to start at center again, I think all told, you kind of look at it, only 17 free throws allowed for the Bucks, 106 defensive rating, which certainly you're more than happy to take against a Pacer team that obviously has some talent. And again, that huge advantage in paint, points in the paint. And then the other big piece was the fast break, right? The fact that, they were able to turn over the Pacers a lot. Brogdon, 7 turnovers, a total of 19 turnovers for the Pacers, turning into 22 Bucks points. Meanwhile, 14 turnovers for the Bucks and just 6 points off that turned into 24-6 fast break edge for the Bucks. So, so they were able to kind of, play with speed when they wanted to, and then keep the Pacers, meanwhile, on the other side, playing pretty much a half court game and, really not, I don't know, it never felt like the Pacers, other than the first quarter when they got going and they hit some threes early, it never felt like the Pacers were really like threatening them or really controlling the game. And kind of like the San Antonio game a bit, where it was kind of close early. Defense maybe wasn't as good as you wanted early, but then over the course, especially of the second half, you built a lead, and Pacers made a big run in the fourth quarter. But for the most part, I think just Bucks looking pretty steady. I'll be honest, a lot of the execution down the stretch was not great, but never really felt too uncomfortable. Other than that one moment when the Pacers got it down to 5, but Bucks stabilized pretty quickly. And again, when you're the champs, you know how to win basketball games. That's what you do. And these last 2 games, I think beating a couple of again, we don't know exactly. I don't know how good the Spurs are going to be. The Pacers should be pretty solid, even with some of the injuries right now to their wings. But just workmanlike effort. Just go out, do what you do. Your best players are the best players on the court, and you just kind of keep grinding out wins.
Yeah, I've got defensive struggles down the bottom of the screen here, but maybe it's defensive challenge, because I don't think you can look at the box score, as you said, and looked at the numbers and say that they struggled tonight, because the numbers will tell you it was a pretty solid performance. But yeah, just personnel-wise, I mean, Thanasis, who, everyone knows can be a bit of a foul machine. He only played the 19 minutes tonight, picked up the 5 fouls. But again, it's hard to be critical of a guy that you're asking to defend Sabonis, I mean, it's just a really, really difficult task. And I felt bad for Mamu at one point during this game. I mean, it's his 4th or 5th game in the league, whatever it is. And there's no allowance for him to ease his way into it and find a comfort level. It's like, no, you're defending, some really super talented big men. So look, those things are going to happen. We mentioned it on the podcast yesterday. A lot of these lineups just really wouldn't have even practiced together. I mean, they didn't practice the other day. They went to George Hill's ranch. So I don't think that they're too concerned about it at this point. But yeah, it's a challenge right now with none of these big guys in. Bobby Portis wasn't on the injury report, then didn't end up playing. So you get the sense that he's getting close, but really, when you look at the dates of this now, this is a hamstring injury that is they're sort of hitting that 3-week mark-ish. So while they said it was a little bit of a twinge at the start, that's pretty stock standard hamstring stuff. So yeah, I mean, hopefully he returns here soon. Before we go to the next segment, though, I do want to just get a temperature check on this. These take fouls, Frank. We saw this in the conference finals against Atlanta, where it was just foul, foul, foul every single time the Bucks were looking to get out on a fast break. Every team seems to be doing it now, and geez, it's just terrible to watch. And if you watch FIBA basketball, and obviously here in Australia, I cover the Australian League as well. They play under FIBA rules, and if you do that, it's 2 free throws and the ball. So it's basically the clear path foul penalty, because it essentially is a clear path without fitting the definition of a clear path. I mean, you're stopping a 3-on-1, a 2-on-1, whatever it may be. And I wish I had the tweet here to give the Twitter user credit here, because I thought it was a good point. It's just stopped so many highlights. He says, what happens if the Knicks fouled and Giannis didn't get to jump over Tim Hardaway Jr.? Come on, like you're just stopping highlights. Tonight there was a lob from Giannis to Thanasis, which would have been really fun. So just annoying and tough to watch.
Yeah, I honestly thought, especially given how much talk there was during the Olympics about people liking the way it was enforced. And again, if you didn't watch the Olympics, the referees have full discretion to call this, and there's no replays of it. So it's just call it like they see it, 2 free throws, get the ball, move on, and that's it. And I think the most important part of it is just, I think, just the incentives it creates, not just the punishment you get in the moment, but the fact that it does encourage teams to not do that specifically. And I think the ultimate sign that you need to do something, as a sport, is when, we've all seen it, right? Oh, smart foul, smart foul. Fouls shouldn't be smart. Like, we shouldn't say that fouls are good or smart. If you're complimenting fouls, it means that there's a flaw in the incentive structure of the sport. And so I think, the fact that now fouling in the backcourt to prevent fast break basketball is considered smart and a good thing, that tells you that we're not incentivizing the right things. And so I think the concern should always be, do you create just another thing that slows the game down because you're going to go replay things? I think the obvious thing to do is for the league, and obviously it didn't happen this year, next year, to implement kind of a 2 pieces to this. Like, one, take the clear path foul rule and kind of wrap it up all into this, and just don't replay it. Just don't replay it. Just say it's called on the floor. Maybe if you want to say, the take fouls are not called in the final 2 minutes of like the game or something like that.
That's what I think, because you knock down some clutch free throws. Keep that in the game.
Yeah. So that might be one thing you could do, but in the course of the game, the fact that you're basically telling the defense, no, just foul, and don't let highlight plays be made. Don't let the offense kind of use its advantage. Again, I think that's just stupid. And I've heard people say, like, well, the ref should be able to like play advantage like they do in soccer. I don't really like that, because then you're incentivizing the defense to foul harder. And it's like, okay, I don't want them to foul harder.
Yeah.
But like we saw today, like I think 2 of those plays, the guy literally passed it and then was fouled, like as the ball was like being released. It's like, part of me is just like, why, like the officials, it was not like they were like body checking. Like, why are you even calling that in the first place? But I think the obvious answer is to, essentially it's called the Euro foul, in however you want to refer to it. But these sort of take fouls, they're just not good for the sport. And again, I think we're just incentivizing the wrong thing. And the interesting thing was, I had to kind of go look this up. The G League implemented their version of this like 3 years ago. And in that version of it, they give you 1 free throw in the ball. So it's not like this is even foreign to sort of the NBA ecosystem. It's not purely a FIBA thing. So yeah, I just don't understand how we don't even at least see the 1 free throw version of this get implemented as they have in the G League. And I think in the G League, anybody can shoot the free throw. So it's not like it has to be, like a bad foul shooter that you fouled or something like that. Literally anybody can shoot the free throw. So yeah, I think it's just kind of common sense type stuff. And again, I think the clear path rule, like the fact that we're reviewing with video replay random clear path fouls that probably are like pretty obvious in like the first quarter games and stopping the game. I mean, like, why? Just who cares? So I think just in general, get rid of the replay on clear path fouls, bring in sort of these Euro foul, take foul type enforcement. And again, if you don't like it at the end of games, just don't have it applied the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, even the final 60 seconds would probably do the trick anyway. Not too many teams are having those take fouls in, with a minute 40 to go. But anyway, yeah, I think honestly, this one would be, most basketball fans would give this one the tick of approval. I would bet that this rule comes into play next year. That would be my bet. But if you are interested in betting, you can go to betonline.ag because they are back better than ever with a new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive your bonus there. From basketball, football, baseball, postseason, nearly wrapped up there. World Series starts this week. NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. You can check it all out at BetOnline. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. And then I mentioned right off the top, our show today is sponsored by RockAuto.com. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? You can get a Honda Odyssey fuel pump for $216 from rockauto.com. It's $350 in a chain store there. So that's $137 saving. Pretty good. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer. They've got everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. So just go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Just write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. As always, like I said at the top, thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day, but your second listen of every day could be Locked On Packers. The Packers had another win, 6 in a row. They're playing Thursday night. Packers fans are starting to get a little bit fired up. I can see some confidence on my Twitter timeline with Packers fans. So we'll see. This is going to be a big game this week. That will be fun. But check out the Locked On Packers podcast with Peter Bukowski. So, Frank, the other night you said you were trying to push me into talk about Pat Connaughton, and I resisted. But he's had another couple of good games. We mentioned he had a couple of big threes in the fourth quarter against San Antonio. Hit another big three, got a pretty nice bounce on this one against the Pacers when they were making a little bit of a run there. But just a reliable player. And Grayson Allen, again, season high 19 points for him. I actually had to change over and watch the Pacers broadcast here. The Bucks broadcast just kept on messing up for me. So I flipped to the Pacers, and they were talking about how happy Grayson Allen must be that now he's playing on the Bucks. And he's got Giannis passing him the ball and getting all these wide open threes. And I have to agree with that point. I reckon he'd be feeling pretty good at the moment with some of these looks he's getting.
And it's a nice combination of obviously the 3-point looks. That's where he's going to take most of his shots at the end of the day. But also I think opportunistically, his control and driving to the basket. I mean, I hate to always make it a Dante versus Grayson comparison because, we obviously hope that in the not so distant future, both those guys will be playing and contributing. And, I think when you look at the Bucks backcourt depth, I mean, the fact that we've seen Justin Robinson in every game, even the ones that have had Drew Holiday, not ideal. I mean, the Bucks have played each of their two-way guys every game so far this season, which you can't do that for the rest of the season. Like those guys can't play every game because of their two-way contract status. But yeah, I think Grayson Allen, I think is, again, has he been absolute lights out every game? No, but I think we've seen sort of the different kinds of things that he can do. Obviously, the 3-point shooting, you love to see, his ability to punish teams for collapsing on Giannis in particular. We've seen, he had the 6 assist night, which is really, encouraging to see. Just again, the fact that he does have that kind of ball moving instinct when it's not there for him. And I think tonight, again, we've seen it repeatedly in previous games as well. When teams close out on him, he's able to put the ball on the deck and attack and get to the rim and finish. And, again, I'm not expecting the worst, which unfortunately, like with Dante attacking the paint, I always sort of feel like something is not going to kind of connect at the end of the day with Dante. So again, not to
He's got to have a bit
slander,
more faith, Frank.
not to slander Dante or anything like that, because I mean, again, I think the Bucks, man, if you get the old, the last season pre-injury version of Dante, and you add that to this group, it's going to be really exciting. When you think about just the depth you're gonna get with that, and the fact that you've got then a guy who has more of a defensive bent than Grayson does, because that's obviously not Grayson's, certainly not his strong suit on the defensive end. I think he competes, but he's not Dante defensively. And again, just Dante and the versatility that he has, I think it's going to be a really nice addition whenever that comes. But for now, obviously, great to have Grayson Allen kind of fitting in and looking comfortable, and Pat Connaughton just not missing a beat from his postseason run, right? I mean, just continues to contribute. The timely, talking about Grayson Allen being able to attack closeouts and kind of be a timely guy attacking the rim. Pat's really been doing the same thing. Just being able to when it's needed, put the ball on the deck, get to the rim, finish. Obviously, that's just a very, very useful thing to have. And again, Pat's ability as well, just to defend multiple positions. And sometimes it's felt like the Bucks have been kind of had to do it with smoke and mirrors here without all their big guys. But obviously, I think Connaughton's done a really nice job, and he keeps this up. He's opting out next summer, which maybe people weren't expecting, but he's looking like a bargain right now. And obviously, it's even more important with the guys that they've been missing. Although we did get a Rodney Hood sighting tonight, and he did hit that nice transition three that Giannis set up for him.
Then he took a horrible one, but hey.
It was that was the 2-for-1, right? He just jacked a bad three at the end of a quarter with 30 seconds left. Yeah, it was not great. But we'll see. I mean, I've been joking with you and Eric about how I've been just sort of trying to figure out how we get Justin Robinson out of the regular rotation, because it's just, that's the thing, right? I mean, you talk about the Bucks depth, and it's like, well, they're missing all these big guys, so it's like, of course they're going to have to play like Mamu and Thanasis a ton, and you're going to see some pretty funky stuff with the big man rotation. But it's like, like Dante's out obviously, and now you've had Drew out. But even in the two games where Drew played, I don't know how many she played in the Nets game, but high teens in that game. He played 25 minutes in San Antonio. We're still seeing Justin Robinson literally every game. So I've been trying to think, like, how do we make it so that Justin Robinson doesn't have to play every night? Because I just feel generally better if you're not having to play both of your two-way guys every night. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Rodney Hood's got left. And, again, George Hill starting again tonight, and didn't have the three ball working as he did the other day in San Antonio. But since we didn't talk the other day, or I wasn't, we haven't talked really since game one. I think that's been kind of one of the subtle things that I've been encouraged by, is just George Hill looking like he's got kind of some juice left in those legs. He had that big dunk, which kind of got lost in the shuffle in Miami, and then was able to get to the rim a couple times in San Antonio as well, and knock down some open threes. Good signs. I want Drew to come back, so we're not having to rely on George Hill to play big minutes every night and be the only true point guard other than Justin Robinson in the rotation. But it's been good to see George at least looking a lot like the old George Hill that we've been used to.
All right. As we look to wrap this up, I remind everyone about the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast with my good friend Josh Lloyd from Down Under. You can check out that if you play fantasy basketball, and he'll have you set up for the season ahead. Perhaps some of the Bucks projections in fantasy have been thrown out the window here early in the season. Before we do completely finish this, though, Frank, I want to dig out an old favorite for a long time Locked On Bucks listeners. You used to use, or Eric used to use this phrase with Thon Maker. But I want to ask the question, is Jordan Nwora a rim protector? And I didn't quite get high enough pitch there, but everyone will know what I'm talking about. Jordan Nwora, another 2 blocks tonight. What's going on? Why is he swatting all these shots all of a sudden?
He's got 5 blocks in 4 games.
Unbelievable.
He's got 4 blocks in the last 2 games. And these aren't like cheap blocks either,
They're
right?
awesome.
It's not like he's like, stripping a guy on the way up, and it's like a block, that the scorekeeper gives you credit for. I mean, tonight he has another two. I mean, he rotates over. Sabonis thinks he's got a seal for a layup, and Nwora comes over and blocks it over the rim. It was kind of a funny sequence. And then he had another block where I think he was like, I forget who it was. Somebody like they had like kind of deep post position and kind of turned baseline to try to put off the glass, and Jordan just blocked it. I mean, again, probably the Durant block will remain as the highlight so far of his defensive season. But yeah, just generally been really impressed with kind of his defensive playmaking. Did anybody expect to say that they'd be impressed by Jordan Nwora's defensive playmaking?
I thought it might take some time, but I didn't think we'd been sitting here 1 week into the season saying that Jordan Nwora is doing stuff that isn't scoring. Like, I thought it might take some time, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
And 3 assists tonight as well. He's got 7 assists now. I think he may have matched his assist total from last year. I'd have to double check this. But 7 assists, hasn't had a turnover the last 2 games, just 2 turnovers on the season. And I think the important thing here is that we really have not seen great basketball from Jordan Nwora in the way that we would expect. He has not shot the ball very well at all. He hasn't been over 50% in any game so far this season. It's not like he's really gotten hot shooting the ball, but the fact that he's competing defensively, I will not say that he's playing great defense, but he's competing defensively. And then, yeah, and by the way, I'm just looking at his numbers, and on ESPN, he had literally this block. I'd forgotten about this, but this block at the rim in transition where he blocked it off the backboard to start a break the other way. I mean, these are hustle plays. These are this is defensive playmaking from Jordan Nwora, and the offense will kind of come and go, but it's the old adage, right? Like, defensive effort and just kind of making your decisions. I mean, that shouldn't come and go, right? Like, that effort shouldn't wane. He may not always be blocking shots every night, but I think if you're Mike Budenholzer, A, you don't have a whole lot of choice but to play Jordan Nwora right now. But B, the fact that he's going out there and, again, just competing and playing hard. And, even if the shot isn't falling, it doesn't feel like he's really hurting you a whole lot. 9 points on 8 shots tonight. Not great, but 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple blocks in 23 minutes. I think it's just encouraging stuff from Jordan. And, again, he'll continue to hopefully get smarter and better in terms of positioning and some of the decision making. But he'll also start to make shots at a higher clip. We know he's capable of that. So yeah, a very encouraging start to the season from Jordan Nwora, and not necessarily in the way that we were expecting.
Well, given all the injuries that we've had to start the season and some of the lineups that the Bucks have had to play, the fact they're sitting 3rd in the Eastern Conference right now as we record this, 3-1 on the season is pretty nice. It's a nice spot to be in. We've said we don't know how hard they're going to go throughout the regular season, but you bank these wins early and put yourself in a good position. So it's a good spot to be in, 3-1. They got the Timberwolves in a couple of nights' time. Wednesday night back at Fiserv Forum, so that'll be fun. They haven't been there after opening night, so they'll get home and play the T-Wolves, and that should be a good game there. So we'll be back tomorrow, as always, with the show Monday to Friday, but we'll leave it here for now. For Frank and myself, we'll speak to you guys tomorrow.